Hello, hello, hello. This is Tara Alamany from Emerald Lake Books. And almost a year ago today, I put together a behind the scenes video of PerfectIt, which is an editing software for professional editors and authors. And now it is August 10th, 2021, almost a full year later. And I'd like to post an update to PerfectIt because today they have released PerfectIt 5.0. And this is an incredible advancement, I think, for this particular software. Now, I've been using PerfectIt for the full year, and typically the way we do it is when we have a manuscript, when it first comes in, we use PerfectIt here, and what we do is we run our house style. So there is a setting here called My Style. And we have this set up with all sorts of customizations for what we use in house. So there are sometimes things like I like to run a check to make sure that common issues like toward versus towards and backward versus backwards, that those are picked up so I don't have to pay a lot of attention to that. I look for things like so that I can go through and delete all of the that's that are unnecessary. So these things are kind of things that we add to our house style. They're common issues we see in writing, and so it just makes it quick and easy for me to identify those issues. And so we run PerfectIt when the manuscript first comes in. But what PerfectIt does as well is it's not just a grammar checker. It doesn't just check spelling. It does something that no other grammar checker that I've seen does, and it's more of a consistency checker. So it will do things like highlighting when you have taken words and used them in two different ways, perhaps hyphenated them in one place and not hyphenated them in another. So this document that I've pulled up is just a series of email templates that we use with our authors when we're coaching them along the way. And for instance, it's found an issue where in one instance I used follow up as not hyphenated, and another other instances I have it so that it is hyphenated. And so it will show me each so that I can decide which one is right. And sometimes the inconsistency is accurate, and it's just a matter of it takes a human reviewer to go through and decide which is right, does all of the follow up. And so what I can do at this point in time is say go out to Webster and see, which one's the right one. Follow up. Should it be hyphenated or not? And so this is going to tell me that as a noun, it should be hyphenated. As an adjective, it should be hyphenated. But if it's a verb, it should not be. So now I can go back with those rules and say, all right, I will follow up. That's a verb, so it should not be. Still need to follow up. That's a verb. They can follow up. Here I have does all the follow up. This isn't a noun here. It's not a verb. And so as a noun, if I go back to Webster and look at it as a noun, it should be hyphenated. So everything is fine here, but it just pinpoints those things that are a little questionable for us. So here I'm using single title as an adjective, and therefore it should be hyphenated. But here it's a single title. It's being used as a noun, and so it should not. So I can go through this and I can find all of the different instances, and there's a lot of different checks that it does. It looks for preferred spellings and hyphenation issues. Here's one where, we want to print edition and forwards their receipt. Now this normally should, it's showing it as something that might be an error, but in actuality, this is the verb form orders and forwards, and so that's accurate. So I can leave that alone. But it just highlights those things that might potentially be an issue and allows us to decide, is this something that we need to look at or not? So that by itself has always been great. But the thing that PerfectIt has done today, oh, and I should mention that if you have tracking turned on when you go into this, it will track all of your changes. So as much as it temporarily turns off tracking while you are going through the PerfectIt process, when you're done, any of the changes that you did make as a result of PerfectIt suggestions, they are tracked for you so you can see what those changes are. So as an editor who, likes to keep track of what changes I'm making to somebody's original manuscript so we can go through them together, that's an important thing to note. So here's what PerfectIt has done today, what they've released today. If you have an online subscription to the Chicago Manual of Style, which is essentially the Bible for any editor who is working with books, if you have an online access to this, then what it does is PerfectIt has a style that it has created that is called Chicago Manual of Style. And so what you can do is you can run similar checks Now it's going to go through a lot of the same checks, but what it's doing is it is telling you the Chicago Manual of Style that goes Chicago Manual of Style rule that dictates that. So a phrase appears with and without a hyphen. This is the same issue we saw before, but if I'm not too certain what I need to do, now it pops up the actual Chicago Manual of Style reference. Now, as a professional editor, I know sometimes just finding the right reference to go to be able to determine how to handle something can be a very time consuming task. So having PerfectIt automatically show me which rule is applying to that is a huge thing. And so going through again, same rule here because we're still looking at the hyphenation of words. But as we go further and start to look at other things, here is, the term businesslike is usually closed. And this is based on Chicago Manual of Style rule here. Compounds formed with like are closed if listed as such in Merriam-Webster, cat-like, childlike, Christ-like. If not in the dictionary, however, they're usually hyphenated and retain the hyphen both before and after a noun. So this is going to be, a great nudge to me to go and check it out. Should businesslike be hyphenated or not? I often thought it should be, but let's see what happens. And as a matter of fact, it should be closed. So good catch. So I can fix that. It's as easy as just clicking fix, and you'll see businesslike has been changed. It's been closed. And so now I can go to the next one. Multi-author is usually closed. Once again, it's giving me the rule that proves that. If you're doing a multi-author event, is this something that I need to check Merriam, or nope, it's just saying compounds formed with prefixes are normally closed. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And so this is just going to really make a big difference for those of us who need to edit according to the Chicago Manual of Style, whether you're an author looking to clean up your manuscript before you send it to an editor so that you are reducing the costs spent on your editing or something along those lines. It's going to make a big difference. The term Wi-Fi with a hyphen is a trademark. As a trademark, it needs to be handled in a certain way. So terms related to the internet are capitalized only if they're trademarked, and as a result, this should be handled in the way that it was shown in the example. So I have to fix it here, and I can fix it here. So then we go next to N dashes, and it's looking through M dashes, similar words, wildcards, find and replaces. It goes through all of the typical things that PerfectIt looks at. You can also customize any one of these styles so that it follows rules that you've set up. So for instance, I have in my house style what my preference is for AM or PM, because the Chicago Manual of Style gives you some leeway. You need to be consistent, but you have a choice as to which you use. And so I can define within editing the current style, I can go in and I can customize to say which my preference is. Now, because this is an actual example from an email, I'm not going to change this one. So I can just skip it and go to the next one. And so here I'm looking at preferred usage, all right. The phrase all right is usually preferred to the non-standard variant all right. Now, in actuality, I prefer it as one word, but this is part of the glossary of problematic words and phrases. And so this information is listed. We can go here and look for all right specifically, and it's going to take me to Chicago Manual of Style and take me right to that entry so I can go and look for all right and see what it has to say about that particular term. And so I much prefer it as one word, but it is by Chicago Manual of Style should be two words. So because this is me writing an email, I'm probably going to leave it this way, but I could fix it there if I wanted to, and I would know the reason why. So here, phrase, at a time when is needlessly wordy. Try when instead. So let me read the sentence. So the real key here is to reach out to many people as you can at the time when your book is right. Yeah, no reason why we can't just use when there. It is overly wordy. So the real key here is to reach out to as many as you can when your book is right. So that works. And forwards we'd already looked at in the other one, and that was fine. Lastly, in most instances, last is preferred to lastly or use finally. So I can go ahead and say, fix this. We're just going to say last. And here, our house style, we prefer ebook with a capital B as opposed to a hyphenated. So I'm going to skip that. Same here. Flyer, in this instance, we do want flyer with a Y, not a flyer as in an I. Um, but this is, one of those things of it tells you which is which. Prefer flyer to, refer to an advertising circular. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a poster type thing. So we are accurate with what we have here. This is, I know it's UK spelling, but we like UK for gray. I've never gotten used to AY for some reason, so that's what we use here. And so we just kind of go through and it tells us about how numbers and sentences should be handled. And it goes and looks at all of the numbers in the manuscript. Now, because this is just a series of email templates, it's not a book. I'm not going to go change all the numbers because in emails prefer them as numbers. But it's checking all those things and making sure that we catch them all. So there's just a very lengthy list of things that it will go through. When I'm done, I can go through, and of course, I told you before that with track changes, I can look to see, I can see what was changed. And so, if somebody needs to see what the original was and what it is now, they can do that. And then I can go, and of course, using words track changes, I can go ahead and accept all changes and stop tracking. So when you're in PerfectIt, if you decide that there are certain changes that you want, you can always go into Manage Styles. And if you need to customize your style sheet for some reason, you can go into here and you can tell it things that you want it always to find, never to find, certain settings. So for instance, I may go in here and say, never find ebook. I'm just not interested. You should never find the phrase. I'm going to put it the way we put it. And I can indicate, let's see, spelling variations. And I'm going to say, all right, as a spelling variation, never find ebook. And I'm going to add it here. And just now it'll skip that so that the next time it does a check, it's not going to look for our house preference. The other thing is going into settings. I can look and I can set each of these things into what I want them to be. So for capitalization of headings, how should it be handled? For bullet capitalization, how should that be handled? And so there's all of these different customizations you can make that match your house style and can be very useful in making sure that your house style is being maintained. So there's just, like I said, so much that you can do with this. When I first saw this a year ago, I was a huge fan of it. I have only grown in terms of how much I appreciate this in the time since then. We use this consistently at this point for two different things. We use it, as I said, when the manuscript first comes in, and then we use it again before we go into our InDesign phase. So after we've made all of our edits and before we go into the design phase for the book. And it just has been incredibly useful to us. It saves a lot of time, but with this new connection to Chicago Manual of Style, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of things and gives us a fairly clean manuscript very quickly in the process. So I highly recommend checking out PerfectIt if you haven't seen it before. And if you haven't watched our first video, take a look. It's on the Emerald Lake Books channel. We do ask that you subscribe if you haven't. And this particular video will soon be on the channel as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment area below, and we will answer them as well as we can. Thanks so much. Bye.